In the year 2026, the financial discourse is dominated by the digital native optimism of Gen Z and the massive inheritance anxiety of the millennials. But standing in the shadows is the most psychologically complex generation in history, Generation X. They are the latchkey generation, the middle children of history. They grew up between the analog safety of the boomers and the digital surveillance of the 21st century. And because of this unique transition, their psychological relationship with money is fundamentally different from any other group on the planet. If you want to understand why Gen X handles wealth with a mixture of cold pragmatism and deep-seated skepticism, you have to look at their biological operating system. Today, we are decoding the emotive wealth of the latchkey generation. 1. The latchkey brain, the psychology of hyper-autonomy. To understand Gen X money habits, you have to understand the latchkey child phenomenon. While the boomers were raised in a post-war era of institutional trust and social safety nets, and millennials were nurtured under the watchful eye of helicopter parenting, Gen X was effectively raised by the television and a spare key. They came home to empty houses, navigated their own boredom, fixed their own meals, and mediated their own conflicts. This environment forged a hyper-autonomous prefrontal cortex. Their formative years were a masterclass in self-governance, which translated into a profound psychological distrust of institutions. Gen X doesn't believe in the social contract because they saw it fray in the 70s and 80s. They don't trust the government to fix inflation. They don't trust guaranteed corporate pensions that vanished in the 90s, and they are inherently cynical toward the too-good-to-be-true algorithmic hype of 2026 crypto schemes. Their money habits are driven by a survivalist need for absolute self-reliance. When a Gen X individual invests, they aren't seeking community or performing social impact to signal virtue. They are building a fortress designed to withstand a siege. They view money not as a tool for consumption, but as freedom from others. This is the generation that pioneered the FU Fund, a liquid barrier against toxic bosses and failing systems. They are the most likely cohort to maintain a bunker mentality regarding their portfolio, prioritizing control over consensus. Ultimately, they don't care about being the wealthiest person in the room. They strive to be the most sovereign person in the room, the one who never has to ask anyone for anything ever again. 2. The bridge effect, analog values in a digital jungle. Gen X is the only generation that truly understands both the before and after of the digital revolution. They remember the physical weight of cash, the sound of a dial-up modem, and the permanence of a handwritten paper ledger. Yet they are the very architects who built the core infrastructure of the modern internet. This creates a psychological state called cognitive bifurcation. While younger generations have been algorithmicized, meaning their spending is driven by high-frequency dopamine loops and frictionless, invisible digital payments, Gen X still retains a deep-seated friction instinct. They possess a biological pain of paying, which is neurochemically much higher than those who grew up with the seamless abstraction of Apple Pay. In 2026, this makes them the skeptical anchor of the economy. They are the ones who look at the current cognitive liquidation and intentionally pull back. Their money habits are a hybrid. They ruthlessly exploit the efficiency of digital tools, but they maintain the protective skepticism of a generation that has seen analog world institutions crumble. They don't trust digital numbers on a screen alone. They demand to see the real-world utility and hard backing of their assets. They are the generation of real estate and revenue, prioritizing tangible cash flow and intrinsic value over the ephemeral speculation and sentiment that drives the 2026 hype cycles.
Because they grew up in a world where things had to be physically repaired and defended, they treat their wealth as a physical object rather than a fluctuating data point, making them the ultimate stealth wealth predators in a volatile digital landscape. 3. The sandwich trap, cortisol and responsibility. In 2026, Gen X is facing a biological crisis, the sandwich psychology. They're the most cortisol-heavy generation because they're financially supporting two different worlds. They're caring for aging boomer parents who lived too long without enough savings, and they're subsidizing millennial and Gen Z children who are locked out of the housing market. This has led to a money habit known as defensive diversification. Gen X doesn't invest for upside, they invest for protection. Their financial decisions are governed by the amygdala's need to secure the tribe. Every dollar they make is mentally partitioned, 30% for the kid's survival, 30% for the parent's care, and 40% for their own great escape. This creates a unique psychological fatigue. Gen X is the exhausted wealth generation. They have the highest earning potential right now, but they feel like they are passing through their wealth rather than owning it. Their spending habits are ruthlessly utilitarian. They value time and health over status symbols. A Gen X millionaire is more likely to spend money on a high-end recovery clinic or a private health coach than a gold watch. They aren't buying luxury, they are buying the physical resilience required to carry the weight of 3 generations on their back. 4. The cynical alpha. Why they reject financial gurus. If you want to lose a Gen X client or viewer, try using hustle culture language. Gen X grew up with the grunge era and the 1987 crash. They have an internal BS meter that is calibrated to detect corporate spin. Their money habits are anti-signaling. While Gen Z uses wealth to signal identity, millennials use wealth to signal morality, Gen X uses wealth to signal indifference. They are the masters of stealth wealth. They look for the dark horse investments. They are the ones buying boring industrial businesses, agricultural land, and boring but stable dividends. They have a psychological disdain for the G-Wagon lifestyle. To a Gen X brain, looking rich is a low IQ move that attracts the wrong kind of attention. They want to be the ghost in the machine, wealthy enough to control the outcome, but invisible enough to avoid the drama. 5. The 2026 Great Shift from Survival to Sovereignty. As we move through 2026, Gen X is entering their final boss phase. They are finally moving out of the sandwich trap and into the inheritance phase. But unlike the generations before them, they aren't going to spend it on stuff. The psychology of Gen X money in 2026 is moving toward absolute autonomy. They are buying back their time with a vengeance. They are the ones leading the mini-retirement movement, taking 3 years off in their 50s because they don't trust that the world will be stable in their 70s. They are the now or never generation. Their money habits are shifting from saving for a future that might not exist to buying sovereignty in the present. Gen X money habits are the result of a biological mismatch. They are high IQ minds trapped in a high-stress, transitional era. If you are Gen X, realize that your skepticism is your greatest asset. Your latchkey autonomy is what will save you from the cognitive liquidation of the modern economy. Stop feeling guilty for being the sandwich that holds everyone together. Start realizing that your indifference to status is the ultimate 2026 flex. In a world of digital noise, the quietest person in the room is usually the one with the most emotive wealth. And in 2026, that person is almost always Gen X. Welcome to the Latchkey generation. Watch this video and subscribe for more.